Welcome back everyone to the channel and the Ender 5 Max. A new printer. We're gonna unbox it and assemble it. Let's get into it. Okay, a little something different this time. I am in the studio, and this is not a printer I want in my house. It's just too big. It's not. I don't think people are going to buy this for their house. This is a monster, and I've got a helper today. It's one of the new product managers in the marketing department. Her name is Kiki. Kiki is new to Creality and has never put together a printer before, so she knows a lot about the Ender 5 Max. She is in the marketing department for the Ender 5 Max. She's the one that got the printer. She's using the printer, but she's never put a printer together before, so I was excited to have a helper. And as it turns out, you need 4 hands for this thing. We're unboxing it here, and usually it's Ender 3 or K1, this is all the parts, but every time I dig into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's only one bit there. Where's the assembled part? It's flat packed, you guys. Like, that's the top of it, obviously. There's the print head you can see. But the top is not attached to the sides, and the sides are not attached to the bottom. So I was, at this point right now, I'm a little nervous. Not gonna lie to you, I have not put together a machine like this before. I have put together Ender 3s, the V3 series, and K1 series, of course, Creality High, of course. These are consumer products. These are designed by our R&D department to be easy to assemble. That's how we market them. We're like, oh, don't worry, you can start printing in 8 minutes. This Ender 5 Max, you are not gonna be printing in 8 minutes. If somebody does it in 8 minutes, they deserve... What is this part? I'm holding this part and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely am reading the book on this one. I have no sniff of a clue at this point what a lot of these parts are. I'm trying to put on a brave face because Kiki is new, and I'm like, oh yeah, no problem, no problem. This is that, and oh, that looks like the bottom. There's a power switch on there. I have seen this put together. I've seen him, and that's it. All the parts are out here. But the table's not big enough. I discovered that right away. I was like, well, this did not go the way I planned. Obviously, we want to start at the bottom, and the bottom is the last piece in the box. So we got to move everything off. Put the top over here. I don't need the top for a bit, probably. And if you look at the length of this video, you will see it is a process. I edited it down. I sped up the turning of screws, so you guys don't have to watch us turn screws in. Every screw that has to go in, don't need to watch that. And look how long this video is. But you're going to want to stay to the end, because after we get it put together, I am going to take the print head apart. I'm going to show you the nozzle, because I was curious to see what the nozzle was, and I want to see what the extruder looks like, how hard the extruder is to take out. I want to see these things, so I'm going to do that at the end after I put it together. Okay, so right now I'm discovering that there's numbers on the corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's numbers on these corner pieces. So the right ones go in the right corner. Obviously you can see the one that's on the table there still has a wire in it. So some of the wires are pre-run through those corner brackets, and they got to go in the right corner. Others are not. You do have to put a couple wires in. There's these, you'll see it later, but there's these rubber stops that you pull out, put the wire in, and then put the rubber stop back on top, and it hides the wires. It looks really sharp when it's done. It's all really nice and clean. I'm taking all the screws out right now too, because in the instructions it'll say 2 M20s by 16, no, M5 by 20, something like that. And there's a lot of different screws. This is what I'm just discovering right now. But the bags are labeled so nicely. The instructions are going to say, I might even come to the camera and show you this right now. Yeah, I do. See, the instructions say use 2 M4s 20. Yeah, that bag has got 2 M4s 20. So it's super easy. They haven't just given you a big bag of screws. So it wasn't that bad. Okay, I'm sorting stuff out now. Oh, here's the tools. Need the toolkit. I should have brought my own screwdriver set because, you know, Allen wrenches, hex keys, whatever you want to call them. They're not great, but we're just using what was in the box. So if you get it and you have no tools. Now here's where I actually needed Kiki to hold on to something, because the screws go in the bottom and this base is pretty big and sliding on the table, and then the extension arm is hanging out. It's just too big. So yeah, you could probably do this yourself if you got more skills than me. I can't. Look at, I'm like a rabid monkey here trying to work on this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. So right now I'm going to ask Kiki, hey, would you mind holding this for me? I got 2 people in the room. She was a little nervous about showing up on camera, and I told her, don't worry, all of the audio is going to be cut out, because we did have a nice visit the whole time, learn more about her. She's pretty new, so she was just like, at first she was like, I don't want to be on camera. Okay, but you got to hold this for me. And so she did. And then she got into it. Not a problem. And look, I could even give her directions to adjust the camera a little bit. Let's make sure you guys can see this whole thing. There we go. Because this is a very big printer. Let's talk about the Ender 5 Max. 400 by 400 by 400 print volume. It is a monster. It's bigger than the K2 Plus. The price tag is not. It's not going to work with CFS. This is what a lot of people ask. If you ask that in the comments, if somebody asks that in the comments, I rely on those of you who actually listen to the video to tell them the answer. It's not going to be compatible with the CFS. This is really going to be marketed towards people who are running print farms, want big build volume, and fast. They want a fast printer with big build volume. Definitely not something that you're going to want to set up in your house, because this process, I think, took me 2 hours. I think it was a 2-hour assembly. I mean, we were talking quite a lot, and we stopped for lunch halfway through, and let's face it, we're both not professionals at this. My job is not printer assembly, but we got it figured out. If you could put together an IKEA bookcase, you could put together this printer. It's really not that bad. It's just a lot of parts, a lot of screws, and it's a pretty heavy duty machine at the end. It's sturdy. I do like the fact that there's more than one screw on each corner, obviously. Give it some strength, some rigidity, which is what you're going to want when you're doing prints, especially prints that are that tall. And we'll get to that when we put the side pieces in. You can already see beside Kiki there on the table those parts that I didn't know what they were at first. The lead screws and vertical poles. There's 4 lead screws and 4 vertical rods. Like, obviously a print could be quite heavy at that size. If you're printing the full size of the build plate, it could get to a pretty big, heavy print. So they've built it accordingly. A lot of this is just repetitive now. We're following the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, putting the 4 corner pieces on, making sure they fit. 2 screws in the bottom of each one. A little finagling. And I do want to speed up things as much as possible so you don't have to watch every excruciating second of this build, but because now what we have basically is a lot of the same. Gonna assemble all 4 corners, get them put together, so speed it up. And you can see I talk a lot. This is mostly what slows me down. Now, we've got to put the feet on. That was the next step. So there's 4 little rubber feet. And Kiki's going to get into the tools here. I love it. Why not? Let's put the feet on. Okay, I'm just turning it around. I mean, obviously you don't need to do that if you're comfortable with where you are. And here, I didn't think the directions were that clear about which was the front. You can see the power switch is right beside my right hand right now. My left hand, sorry. That's the power switch. And turns out that is the front of the machine. So I needed to flip this around. That wasn't super clear in the instruction book, I didn't think. I guess once you started plugging in cables and stuff, you'd have figured it out, but let's just say if you're doing yours, that power switch that is down there, that little red button you can see on the inside, that's on the front. And the power cable, the plug-in, is on the back. And fits into spot, just like that. And then a bunch more screws to turn in on the top. So we'll speed up through that. Okay, flipped it around again. I think I sped that video up by like a little more than 5 times speed for us screwing in the screws. But I mean, yeah, there's a few screws to put in the top. Now here's those the lead screws, the side pieces. And again, the instructions weren't super clear. We read them about 3 or 4 times, but this is how you do it. You put them in at an angle, and then it does go really easy if you have it in the right spot, exactly in the right spot. Like that. See how it just fell in there? As soon as Kiki pushed it into the exact right spot, it falls into place. You think it's not going to clear the top, but it does. And then they had the foresight enough, I think I'm going to show you a close-up of this, to put holes in the top bar so that you can tighten the screws in the bottom bar. I love it when manufacturers do things like this. Let me show you what I mean. Can you see here? The screw is actually down in the base, but they've put a hole in the top so that you can tighten. I love it. Good design. Now there's screws in the top as well, and this little tiny set screw on the top of the vertical rod. In the instructions, it asks you to loosen those. That one right there. It tells you to loosen those before doing all of this installation. So I don't know what the reason is, because I don't know what I'm doing. So I just followed the instructions. You guys, you can't go wrong if you just follow the instructions. So that's what I did. I loosened those little set screws before we did all of this. I tightened the bottom screws, and then tightened the top screws, and then tightened up those little set screws again. That's what the instructions say to do. And we did the same thing on the other side. Like I said before, it's a lot of screws, but they were all well marked. There's 2 in the bottom, 2 in the top, plus those little set screws. It was a little bit of work, but well marked, not too bad. Now we're plugging in the motors at the bottom. There's wires coming out of that base, and you plug in the 2 motors. That's for the Z-axis. And then the next instruction says to take off this plate. And inside the plate, there's a couple of cables that have to be plugged in. So I'm going to tidy up the desk while Kiki takes off that base plate. And I tell you what, having an assistant, nothing wrong with that. I love it. Inside that little box, yeah, you put the heated plate now beside it, and the cables that come off of it go into that. Now, of course, these tubes are in the way and you can't see it, but there's really only one plug-in inside there. And there's a little collar that tightens it and holds it on. You plug that in. I just want to make double sure that it's plugged in. You know, there's nothing worse than after you're done thinking, did I push that in all the way? So I'm making a concerted effort here to, it's definitely plugged in, right? It's definitely plugged in. Yeah, okay. Then there's another small little cable here that just screws onto the outside. It's super easy. I mean, these things, there's only one place that these go into. So I'm just going to screw that on, and then the instructions say put the base plate back on. So usually at this point, I take the base plate back off and check again to make sure that cable was really tight, because once you cover it, you can't check it again. But I was 100% sure. I like the little screw-on collar it's got in there to make sure it's tight. So now it's just a matter of putting the base plate back on. Now, I really enjoy my job. I get to go to Creality. I get to make videos. People find new printers and ask me if I'll help them put it together. What could be better than spending a day putting a printer together and getting paid for it? This base plate, or the printing plate, now goes onto the platform. It's super easy. This is the steps here. You don't really need to read the instructions, but I'm reading every step because I don't want to do something in the wrong order. So now there's 2, 4, 6, 8 screws to go in, and we only have one Allen wrench that fits. We should have found another toolkit so Kiki could have done one side, but now I'm going to flip the printer around again. I want you guys to see the front of it all the time. I think it's time to run some cables for the, oh yeah, so here's that little rubber or plastic strip that's in the corner that I was talking about earlier. And then this is the cable that goes to the display screen. So it goes out there, and I was like, you know, I'm really making sure I save all the cable I can, because in my experience with K-series printers, the cable is just long enough for somebody with tiny hands to plug in the control panel, but you know, I've got big clumsy hands. It's always difficult for me, but actually this one was really good. There's lots of cable sticking out the top, and then this little plastic strip just goes right back on that corner, snaps right into place, and looks like a finished product again. Hides that cable inside. So each corner has got it. You can kind of see in that back corner, you can see the cable sticking out the top. You can just pull that plastic piece off that exposes the wire, so it's easy to get at them. And now, at this point when I was putting it together, I was just like, oh, I love this. I love being able to hide wires. I wish everything was like this. I wish my desk at home was like this. I could hide wires like that. Look at all the cable that's sticking out here. I actually end up having to push some of it back in because I had too much. I have plenty of room for my giant mitts to be able to connect the display screen. So first we just screw on the display screen bracket. You can see the two knobs on the bracket. Obviously that's going to slide onto the back of the display. Here it is. Ooh, I should have left this part right here for you guys to hear, but you'll just have to watch and enjoy it because, oh, I love doing that. Pulling plastic off a brand new piece of equipment. There's the plug-in. Look at all the room I've got there. Got room to almost show you me doing it. Simple. You've done that before. You know how to do it. Put this in there. And look, I actually have extra wire there. I'm going to try to push it back down into the hole, which it does. No problem. There is a couple more wires that need to be connected. Obviously, the filament runout sensor is probably next. And the PTFE tube going to the top of the printer. The light at the front, I think, is the very last thing to get connected. Oh, here's the filament spool holder is what's going on now. So the filament spool just goes on the back corner here. Super simple. Probably, if it was me, I would just put my filament dryer in this spot right here. And then it goes straight up from the dryer into that runout sensor. Like feeding the printer from a Space Pi dryer box would be super easy with this machine. But it's got a spool holder on the side. Maybe if you're running a print farm, you're using 3 kilogram spools, you could easily print yourself a spool holder that just sits on the floor right beside the printer. Big spool feeding right up into that. It'd be pretty convenient. Having a printer this big would be pretty convenient for a lot of things like that. And then if you're printing big things, having that build size and that speed. I mean, some of the older printers had nice build volume, but were so slow. You'd have 3-day prints, 4-day prints on them. This thing is ripping through filament. There. Now this little device is the guide for the PTFE tube. Or maybe for the cable. I can't remember. Let's see which one it holds. I actually think it holds the cable. But obviously it moves. Oh yeah, right. It's the power cable. So right there on the sticker, they want you to snap that into place. And the PTFE tube is connected to the cable, so I was right. Even if I was wrong, I was right. And then 2 zip ties. I hate using zip ties when I'm putting together a printer. I wish there was a clip around it or something a little better, but I mean, it is what it is. If it was my printer, I would definitely have taken that yellow label right off because it looks a little messy having the zip ties taping it together, but maybe some people don't care. I would. If I was putting it together myself, I would have. I mean, if it was mine. And now the power to the top of the print head. There's 3 screw holes. There's 3 screws. It's triangle shape. Can't get this one wrong. That's my famous last words, actually. Can't get this wrong. There's no way I could screw this up. Yeah, right. Watch me. But fortunately, Kiki was there reading the instructions, telling me what to do, so I appreciated all her help. And then just tighten the screws. Those 3 screws are in. This was a little different for me because I'm used to the K series, and in the K series, this PTFE tube is locked in. You have to push down on the little tab to pull out the tube, but on this one, no, the tube is just in there. And then we have these cables, these power plugs down here. There's 3, you can see. One goes to the filament runout sensor here. I think they're all different sizes, so there's nothing you can do wrong. And turn the printer just so you can see. Also, it's a little hard to get an angle of this. Actually, a little difficult to even see. Not the filament runout sensor, but the next one. I mean, you can see one plug right there above for that. There's a motor in the corner, so you can see that one for there. But I was looking for the third. I was like, where's the third plug-in? I mean, okay, obviously this one goes here. It fits in there, so it goes in there. Well, what is this other wire for? And even, I mean, I don't think we're going to see it on camera. I'm trying to get the camera in a way that you can see this, but you can barely see it with your eyes. It is up and in there. I'm scratching my head right now, reading the instructions so that you don't have to. And there it is. I just saw it. I'm like, what the? How on earth am I supposed to? Actually, you know what? Although you can't really see it, plugging it in was pretty easy. Like, I don't know how to describe this to you. Here, I'm going to try to get the camera in. No, you're not going to be able to. I don't think you're going to be able to see this. It's up inside there. You can't see it. And I was like, no, there's no way. How am I ever going to... And then watch this in the first try. It's just like, boink. Oh, that was super easy. It's plugged in. So there is a plug right up there for that third cable. And then on this side, I don't know why, this wire is not run through the frame assembly. So you pull the little plastic piece off. Some of them are and some of them aren't. And this one wasn't. So you pull the little plastic piece off, run the wire up it, plug it in. Make sure the wire stays inside that. This is a good angle. You can actually see that groove that the cable's in on all corners. And then this little plastic strip that just buttons it up. And makes it look so professional, like you know what you're doing. When you're done, people are like, whoa, where did the wire go? I'm impressed by incredibly simple things. Now, I think there is just one thing left to do. We're reading instructions still. Oh no, there was another wire at the bottom. Sorry, I forgot about this one. So we've got those two there that Kiki took care of for me. And here's the last one. This is the lights inside. So you can see the LED light there. And then that other plug that's hanging there is for the... Sorry, don't know why I... Oh, she was having a little trouble plugging in. That's all right. And this is for the status light at the front. So that status light is something that's so incredibly simple, but I love it. In fact, in one of our live streams, somebody told me that they have made their own status light for their K-series printer because they liked the idea too. So that little light beside the Creality symbol, oh, they should have done it as the Creality symbol. That was silly of them. Maybe that's next gen. That light will be green when it's printing. Orange when it's ready to print, and red if there's a fault or failure. Simple. So if you have a whole row of printers at a print farm, you can quickly see which ones are working without walking around. That's it. Ender 5 Max. And now, because you've stuck with me for 30 minutes, almost 30 minutes already, well, we're going to take this baby apart. I always want to do this when they have a new printer, and they never let me do this. And since Kiki is new, she doesn't know that they don't let me do this. So she was like, yeah, let's see what an extruder looks like. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So first I'm going to take the cover off. This is very similar to a K-series printer as far as the print head goes. Not the nozzle is not like a K-series printer, but because I've taken apart my K1 print head and extruder a number of times. If you have a K1, you can probably take an extruder apart blindfolded with one eye. And so, yeah, there you go. Take this cover off. There you can see a fan that's in the front of it, just like the K1. K1C's got a fan in the front. So I know there's going to be a power plug inside to power that fan. And because it's, come on, get those tabs at the top. Because it's brand new, of course, that power plug is glued, and I didn't want to get the glue. I didn't want to cut the glue right now, so I was like, oh, we'll just hang it there for now. You'll see later I do take it off because I wanted to get the extruder off and it was in my way. But for now, we're just like, let's take this nozzle off. So very similar to the K1 series. Got the silicone sock on there. So that's the first step. Take that silicone sock off of the hot end. You can see the ceramic hot end there. That's what heats up the nozzle. If this is your first time seeing a 3D printer. I mean, if it is, if you wanted to see how a 3D printer works, this is fun stuff. That white ceramic thing heats up the nozzle. The nozzle is just this little tip that I'm taking off right now. And it just screws out with this wrench. Obviously, there's steps to do this properly, but I just wanted to show it to you guys. I wanted to show you the nozzle. I was really hoping it would be the unicorn nozzle from the K1C Ender 3 V3. I love that unicorn nozzle. Tell me in the comments if you disagree with me, but I've upgraded my printers to all use that nozzle now, and this one has got, that is very similar to the old Ender 3 V3 SE style nozzle. It's a very short nozzle. So inside there, the heat break is not attached to the nozzle, right? It's not connected to the nozzle, where I like that unicorn nozzle of the K1C where the heat break is all connected to it. It's all one long thing. But maybe this is better. Maybe this is better for people who are running print farms. They maybe prefer this kind of thing. Okay, so I'm taking that plug out now. Let's go onto the top and show you the extruder. Now the extruder, if you're new here, is right at the top there, and that's what's pulling the filament and pushing it into the nozzle. So it's just some gears and a little tiny gearbox right here that pull the filament consistently, at a nice consistent pace in and push it in through the nozzle. So there's two screws on the side. Now on a K1 or K1C, K1 Max, K1 SE, there's two screws on one side, one on the other, and then basically you pull out that extruder, which is, you can see it at the top, the little tab at the top. That right there, that's the extruder. It's wiggling now. I've taken out two screws on one side and it wiggles a lot, and I was like, what in the what? Why is it wiggling so much? Because there's a screw here on this side. It shouldn't wiggle this much. This screw on this side was loose. That should have been way tighter than that. I didn't think it was part of the extruder. I was like, do I need to take this out? It was too loose. Now the extruder is free, but on the Ender 5 Max, you can't pull it out. On the K1 right now, you can just pull it straight out. Ender 5 Max has got that black bracket where the power cable is coming in there, and this black bracket has to come off. So if you take off two screws on this side and two screws on the other side, you can slide that black bracket towards the back of the machine. You don't need to pull it right off. You can just kind of slide it back, and then you'll have room to get the extruder out. There's that covering, a cowl on the top, that black plastic covering for the cable, and it's just preventing the extruder from being pulled out. The extruder is connected to a little motor. There's a tiny motor on the back of the extruder, so obviously the motor just spins the gears. Extruder sounds like a difficult, complicated thing, but it's really not. It's a motor spinning gears. Okay, I've got all the screws out now. So there was two on one side, one on the other of the extruder, and then on this black plastic cowl there's 2 and 2, so there's 7 screws to pull out, and then you kind of got to wiggle that cowling back, and bam. Oh, come on now, I thought I had it, and kablooey. Yes, come on, do it, you can. Oh, fail again. This is stressful for me. Wait, I was the one that was there. Let's get it back up here so you can see it. I know this comes off. Spoiler alert, that is far enough back. The little motor is just shaped. You can see it fits through that little shape there. But of course there's wires on the motor too, and yeah, you just have to pull it out. No problem. Now you can just take it off. I always just leave the motor attached. I have no interest in unplugging wires unnecessarily. So I always just leave the motor attached. There's 2 screws here. The screws just hold the extruder to the motor. And of course they're not the same size as the screws that were holding the extruder into the machine. That drives me nuts. And I'm just telling Kiki, that's a motor, that's the extruder. So this top part is the extruder. We're gonna disconnect it from the motor. The motor will stay attached to the machine because it's the only thing that's really got power. And the extruder is just a little box of gears. And it's in 2 pieces. And I don't know if I got great camera angles of taking the extruder apart, but basically it's in 2 halves. And once the motor comes off, the screws don't actually hold the extruder together. Basically, then you can just pry the 2 halves apart. And this is the inside of the extruder. So you can see the filament goes out here. I'm talking to Kiki and telling her parts of it are plastic, parts of it are metal. You don't want the heat to touch the filament in the extruder. So perhaps that's their theory behind plastic gears in there. They seem to work good. I haven't had a ton of extruder issues other than the original K1, which everybody had extruder issues with, and that's it. That is the extruder. Now I'm going to put 7 screws back in, guys. I'm not going to make you watch that. You've watched me put enough screws in today. We're 36 minutes into this video. There's been a lot of tools. So take my word for it. I put in 4 screws on that black plastic cowling, 3 screws on the extruder, and it's put back together. This is the last one, surely. And then all we have to do is put the silicone sock back onto that hot end. You can see the nozzle is a little naked right now. So we got to put its silicone sock back on. I don't think I'll show you that. And we got to plug the fan back in. And put the cover back on. So this is something that you'll have to do every time that you take the extruder apart. You'll get very comfortable taking this fan off. If you get a filament block or filament breaks inside your extruder, you can just take that cover off. Super easy. On this one, I think there was just 1 screw on each side, and then there's 2 tabs at the top there. You can see how I put it on. I put the 2 tabs on first and then slide it down. And we're pretty much done, you guys. This has been a fantastic machine. I really like the fact that it's 400 by 400 by 400. I think the max speed is 600 millimeters per second, so it is fast. I've got videos of it printing big prints. The price is going to be right around $730 US, I think. So it's not an expensive machine. No camera. Oh, there is camera that's optional. There's sides and top that are optional. That is the Ender 5 Max. Thanks for watching.